you decided to take a break from social media lately, and I'm a little bit jealous. And I just like to, was that something super intentional, or did you just get fed up and decided to take a break?
It was probably a little bit of the latter. I was like, I've thought about it for a long time. Like, I've had a lot of people say, like, oh, they think I'm like an industry guy or that I'm getting paid by companies or whatever. Like, and I keep telling them, like, if social media goes away for me tomorrow, nothing fucking changes in my life other than maybe I'll actually spend a little more time with my family. So I was like, all right, someday I'm just gonna shut it off for whatever period of time. And yeah, I'm like everybody else. I'm a little bit addicted to it. I mean, that's just the way we are. It's the way we're wired.
Yep.
So I mean, it wasn't like super like I was like, oh, this fall I'm just going to take some time off. Um, I was kind of in the middle of the season, and I was having like kind of a rougher season in my head. I had had some bad luck, different things, and I was just like, I was dwelling on social media, and then I was just getting bombarded with all this um, election stuff, and I just at a certain point I was just like, fuck it, I'm done. I just need to take a break. I just need to do my own thing. I just need to kind of go back to like my roots and just hunt and be with the family and do my own thing. And it was awesome. Like it was a bit of a wake up call though too, because
Right.
um, I had to hide the app. I didn't want to delete it because again, you know how retarded I am when it comes to fucking using these things. I was like, if I delete the fucking thing, I probably won't be able to get it back. I don't know my password. I was like, so I just like I had to put it in a like subgroup or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I found myself jumping on my phone randomly. It's just a habit. You grab your phone, you open it, and I was probably opening it to look up the weather or look up a question for work or something online. And I was immediately scrolling to where I normally hit my Instagram button. I'm like,
Yeah.
what in the fuck am I doing? And it was a wake up call. It's like, you are so addicted to this shit
Yeah, man.
that every time you open your phone, even if it's for another purpose, you're jumping on trying to get on there. So, yeah, it was definitely a needed uh, thing.
Yeah, you've inspired me, man. Because I would say, like, yeah, again, I'm not sponsored or anything either, but most of my business definitely has to do with like creating content and being
hmm
online. But like a 2 week break ain't going to change anything, you know?
No.
And like, I think, yeah, I gotta do something similar because I'm the same way as you. And it's funny, people are always talking about the backcountry and solo stuff. And we've had this conversation before. I think people's biggest problem is that they're not used to being alone with their own thoughts. And I think that's what that knee jerk reaction to look for that icon is. The moment your brain starts to talk to itself, we don't like that. And you want to be distracted. Dude, I'm driving my kid to school the other day and I look at the bus stop and there's like 8 dudes and some chicks or whatever. And all of them are down like this. I was like, when I grew up, that wasn't like that, man. Like you just would have sat there and
Yeah,
thought. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like, what a novel fucking concept to just
it is.
be alone with your own mind. And I don't think we're comfortable doing that anymore. And that's so we just got to open it and distract, open it and distract.
It is, and I I hate to say it, but I don't like to be like sitting in a tree stand or something, and you're immersed in the outdoors
Yep.
or a ground blind or whatever, and you're waiting on a deer. Maybe there's nothing going on, or sitting in a freaking antelope blind, which is the worst for 16 hours. And I truly think back, like I'm like, I have so much shit that I can do with my phone, interact with. I can watch a movie. I can do, there's so much of this stuff that sitting and just thinking, like sometimes I just force myself. I'm like, I just got to put that thing away
Yep.
and I just got to sit here. and it's uncomfortable. Like it
Yeah.
actually, like we are becoming so tied to the internet, the computer. Like you say, you don't want to be in your mind. Um, Now sometimes I've got like a lot to think about with business or with hunting or whatever, and it's different. But when you have that, just that, yeah. Sometimes I wonder, like, what the fuck did people do for the entire day that they were awake? Like, you know, and I grew up. How old are you?
46.
Okay, I'm 37, so 10 years difference. But I grew up right on the edge of phones. Like it
Right.
was not, when I was in high school, people had like some guys had flip phones. I never had a flip phone until I was just out of high school. But um, so I grew up kind of on the very tail end of when we had that. And I think you're right. I mean, I don't think people are comfortable being in their head at all.
No.
I mean, even when you're in the backcountry, like I found even myself, like I'm guilty of it 1000%. Like I'm human. I like there are times where, you know, when you're by yourself, it's a completely different deal. Like being in the woods, like actual, like being away from humans, and it's night and there's no sound, and it's enjoyable, but it's also like, it's, I don't know how to explain it. I guess it can be pretty overwhelming, I guess.
100%, man. And this is why one of my big tips to people, especially when they're getting into their first kind of solo stuff, is podcasts and audiobooks. And and
Absolutely.
and be honest with yourself. Yes, that's a distraction, but it's
Yes.
like bite-sized chunks. Sit with your mind for a little bit, and then and I'll ration myself. Like I'll be having lunch, and I'll be like, okay, I'm going to give myself 15 minutes of a podcast while I eat my sandwich, and this is going to be my downtime. I don't, because I think it drains on you fighting that
Yes.
internal battle all the time. And it's like you need a break sometimes,
Yes.
It's like the odd cookie when you're on a diet. Like just chill the fuck out. You don't have to be
Yes.
perfect all the time. And I'll ration those. The other thing is I really like an audiobook before bed for like half hour, 45 minutes. I fall asleep quicker. Like it just makes life a little bit simpler. But I kind of draw the line at movies. I've taken movies a couple
Yeah.
times and I'm like, this doesn't feel right. This feels like I'm not here anymore,
Right.
And
Right.
so, and like everybody, like, I'm not going to judge. I don't really care what the fuck people do, but I do think, especially on the solo stuff, having a little distraction every now and then can be a very positive thing to help you, especially when you're newer into it. And especially when things aren't going well. Like I really liked what you were talking about earlier about when you're not having a good season. Dude, I got my ass handed to me this season. Okay, guiding went phenomenal. Personal season, just pure destruction. Like just brutal. I was like, do I even know what I'm doing? Like, what has the past 10 years even been for? And the funny thing was, I've thought about it a lot. Maybe we'll get into that in a minute. But I realized one of my problems is I like part of what I do is I talk about what I'm going to go do before I do it. And then I do it and I film it and I share it when I get back. And that was always one of my frustrations with guys I would follow because they'll like drop films, but like a year after they went on the hunt. And I'm
Mhm.
like, I don't know. I'm not really connected to it. I don't even know when you did this. So I always wanted to do stuff more real time. But I realized, I'll be going to do a goat hunt and I'll do like a Q&A on the drive up to the goat hunt. And then when I'm on that goat hunt, the whole time in my mind, I'm like, and I know what this is just narcissistic bullshit. I know nobody cares what Jay kills or like nobody thinks about me as much as I think they think about me. But in my head, I'm like, the whole world is waiting for me to come back. If I'm unsuccessful, and then I start putting this pressure on myself. And one of the new things, the new rules I wrote for myself after the fall going, because listen, I don't care if I have a bad fall. I'm not going to be a train wreck in my head again like I was this fall. Like I was a stressed out piece of shit. And that's not what, if that's what this is going to be, fuck it.
Right.
I'll go do something else because that's
Yep.
not what this is about for me. And the new rule is I'm not going to be so like announcing with my calendar. Like, I got some stuff coming up for the rest of the year. I'm not talking about it. Like, I'm going to go do this shit for me. If I decide I want to do something about it or create, then I'll handle that when I get back. And already I feel less pressure. And I know that's just pressure I'm putting on myself, but here's the thing. I think I also operate better when I can just like, I think I was almost trying too hard because of the pressure, and it was like compounding the failure. Like it was just making it worse. So and if you look at all the kind of pros who do this, none of those guys tell you what they're doing before they do it. And half the things they go on, nothing dies, but you don't even know they went on it. You like, they're only sharing with you the ones where they were successful, which is what makes it seem like those guys are constantly killing, when you and I both know that's not the case by a long shot.
Right. No, dude, I had the same experience. Like you hate, like, it's so funny because I love these fucking guys that are like, I'm immune to that. That doesn't bother me. Just shut the fuck up. You're not immune to it. You're in the same boat we are. You're a human being. And so I quit, not admitting to the fact that I'm a goddamn human being. I get jealous.
Yep.
I try not to go out there and show my jealousy. Like, I don't go and just comment a bunch of, oh, was that public, private, oh, it was on I don't do that shit, but it does filter through my head. And I'm like, you're a douchebag just like the rest of these guys.
Yeah.
But what I noticed, like you, that is, I felt the pressure, and I still, like, I don't know, like, there's two pressures. I put pressure on myself to be successful because, and you're probably the exact same way. Like, I'm like, everybody's like, oh, I'm just there to hunt and smell the roses. No, I'm there to kill. I'm there to kill and succeed. That's why I hunt. Do I always succeed? No. Do I have to enjoy the hunt? No, but that's what I'm there for. I'm not going to church it up and say, oh, I'm just there to look at trees and sunsets. No, that's not what I'm fucking there for. That is a awesome byproduct of what is happening. But so that pressure I put on myself, but the pressure of oh, so-and-so killed another bull. Oh, Jesus, look at that 370 bull. Oh, look at this and look at that. And like, all that does, honestly, is it adds pressure, but it also just makes you just tear yourself down. Like,
100%.
Like, oh, I'm not as good as that guy, or I'm not and fuck, that might be the first elk or animal that guy's killed in 3 years. Like, you don't know. Like, I mean, if you actually look at what they've done, you may not be quite as impressed, but it's all about what is here and now.
Yeah.
So what I noticed when I got off social media is one, I kind of lost that. Like, I didn't have like, oh, so-and-so might be doing this. So I wasn't worried about anybody else but me, which was fucking-tastic. It was awesome to just, now I still put plenty of pressure on myself. And my wife, she'd tell you, like, I drove her crazy. Like, this is the worst year ever. I was just like, but not worrying about what other people were doing, and not worrying about like mundane, like you were saying, like you tell people what you're doing, where you are, documenting the hunt so that they know that you put in the work.
Yeah, that's part of it.
You know what I'm saying? Like, it's
well, a big part of it to me was, I remember talking with this guy and somebody was giving me shit because he never thought I was in the field. And I was like, dude, I clock like 100 days. What the? And then he's like, well, I would never know it going on your social media. And this was like a year or two ago, maybe even more. And I was like, well, maybe that's because I'm not shouting from the rooftops every single time I go for a walk to check cams. And I think that got in my head. And I was like, oh, okay, well, I need to like prove to everybody I'm not one of these douchebag influencers. Like, I'm putting in the miles. And so there's this constant like pendulum between like, I don't give a shit what you think, but and some of it's also fun. Like, I've been on whitetail hunts where there's a shitload of action at the bait. I've got cell service. It's a fucking riot to like post pictures and like be texting with people while like there is a positive side of that sometimes, like the Q&As while you're sitting in a blind and nothing's going on. I just think sometimes it's hard to draw that line. And I think one of my big takeaways from me this year, I tried to put too many hunts into too few days and didn't end up giving any of the hunts the attention that they deserved. Like I put 6 years worth of points out in Wyoming, and I don't even know if you heard about. It was an absolute horror show.
You texted me and said you were, yeah,
Bro,
I heard.
yeah, I remember, yeah. But in hindsight, I took my elk season. I ended up hunting moose for the first 4 days, which doesn't even make any sense. And then elk for a day or two here, elk for a day or two in Alberta. That only left me 6 or 7 days to go to Wyoming. And by the end of it, I think I was like functionally hunting elk for less than 5 whole days. And I was like, my elk season is everything to me. Like, you put a gun to my head and say you only do one thing for the rest of your life, it's elk in the rut with a bow. Like, it is my passion. And for that to have come and gone, I don't even really care that I didn't kill nearly as much as the season. I wasted the season because I was greedy. Like, I had these visions in my head. I'm going to kill an elk in BC. Then I'm going to go kill an elk in Alberta. Then I'm going to go kill an elk in Wyoming. Everybody's going to think I'm an elk slayer. And it was like, and I lost the fucking point, man. Do you know what I mean? Like, that wasn't what I should have done. That Wyoming hunt was everything to me. I should have booked 2 weeks off. I should have drove down. And you and I both know what a 10-day hunt feels like compared to a 4-day hunt. Like,
Yeah.
it's just, the first 3 or 4 days, it's chill. You're okay. I still got lots of time. You get to that day 4 to 6 in the middle. You've got everything figured out from the first few days. You start to hit your stride. Fair enough. If there's nothing on the ground by day 7, things start to get a little bit stressy near the end. But yeah, that was the other big takeaway for me. And that comes right back to this external pressure. Like, I was thinking more about what everybody else was going to think about my hunts than what I'm looking for in a hunt.
Yeah, dude. I do it every year. Every year, I'm already doing it. I'm already planning next year, and it's already out of hand. Like,
Yeah.
I'm especially with elk.
Yeah.
I am the worst elk hunter, and I not only am the worst elk hunter, but I used up every last ounce of elk luck on the first bull I killed. Giant fucking over the counter. I mean, I think God was just like, well, that's it. That's all
Yeah.
you're done. Like, no shit. I went to New Mexico this year, and it wasn't like a banging unit. It was the first time I'd ever gone with an outfitter for elk. I mean, I've obviously hunted with outfitters, but never gone with an outfitter. But I was like, I'm going to go and I'm just going to go and learn some shit from this guy. And I had to, and he was a great dude. To get the landowner tag, which was a cheaper one because, like I said, it wasn't a banging unit, but there's plenty out there. I mean, my buddy had been there. He killed a good bull, and he'd missed a couple of really big bulls. So I was like, all right, this is going to work. This is going to be awesome. I'm going to learn some shit. Well, I went there and it wasn't like a crazy long hunt. I think it was only like a 6 or 7 day hunt. Never saw a fucking elk. Never laid eyes on a fucking elk. And I'm not kidding you. I told him, I was joking that night I was leaving. I was like, don't worry, I'll be out of the state at like 8 a.m. tomorrow. That's when I quit. So I social media ended that night. I was like, fuck it, I'm done.
Interesting.
So I told the guy, I said, don't worry, I'll be out of the state tomorrow at 8 a.m. You'll probably send me a picture at fucking 8:30 of a dead bull. I'm not kidding you. I think they killed a fucking bull the next day. We never laid eyes on one. We heard 2 distant bugles, and the other guys that only had deer tags in camp, they had a bull elk run to 12 yards, stare at him, turn broadside, put his leg forward, look at him again, and then turn and walk up the hill. I mean, just some weird shit. And I say that like I'm bitching, but it's well, I guess what I was saying is with elk hunting, you really can't half-ass it. You've got to, if you want to do it the right way, you really probably do need a minimum of 7 to 10 days.
Yeah.
And you have to put all your eggs in that elk basket, which I am terrible at doing. I am always like, oh, a deer? Like I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, maybe I can have a deer tag and a moose. Like I've had elk tags when I've had moose tags. I've never just focused
Yeah.
and just said, I'm just hunting elk. I'm not hunting, I'm not having any other tags. I'm just gonna hunt elk for 10 days. And
I
really
think
that's what I need to do.
and the other big part of that is date picking because I'm always like trying to sandwich them. So I'm like, oh, I'll be here for a little bit at the beginning of the rut and I'll be over here for a little bit at the end of the rut. And it's like, no, next year from the 10th to the 25th, I'm hunting elk and I'm going to be hunting elk in one spot. I don't know where that's going to be. It'll depend where I draw a tag. I can always do over the counter here at home, but it's like I was up north in BC this year from like the 1st to the 6th. And then it was like, and it's just like, oh, maybe I'll catch it early. And it's like every single time it bites me in the ass. And I think, especially with something that's so date dependent, like I think if you want to catch a deer rut, you got to give it the same level of intention. Like, okay, when do I think the peak is going to be? X amount of days before that, X amount of days after that. This is all I'm doing for that window. Because I think when you try and compromise, it's like that story of the dog who's walking over the bridge with the bone in his mouth and he looks over the side and he sees the reflection of the bone. So he lets go of the one bone to get the other bone. And now the motherfucker's got no bones. And I feel like that's my elk season this year, like just zero bones.
Dude, I'm right, like 100%. And traveling, what people don't understand is when you travel for a rut hunt, a timing hunt. For one thing, I don't give a shit what you think. If you're like one of these moon phase guys and you can nail it down, like good luck. Like I have 1000%, 90% of the time when I travel to hunt whitetails, I miss it.
Yeah.
And it's granted, most of the hunting that's done, especially with whitetails, is like a 5 or 6 day hunt. Or, I've only got a little bit of time to go. By that time, I've wasted, I've spent all my time. I need to be home. So when you're traveling for hunting, that's another thing with the 10 days. Like if you can allot a good period of time, because 1000% out of those 10 days, say on an elk hunt, in my opinion, on an elk hunt, if you did what you just said, you went from the 10th to the 20th. Okay. You're going to have some shitbag days for the first 3 or 4, whatever. Then you're going to have 1 or 2 banging days. And then you're going to have some more shitbag days where things are, and that's all I've found. Same with whitetails. Like I've gone when the rut is supposed to be banging, and seriously, my buddy's like, man, they're running everywhere. And you get there, and for the next 4 days, they're locked on does, and you can't. They're not moving. All you're seeing is spikes and button bucks, and you're like, what is happening? Why? I thought this was nailed down, but truly, if you're going to hunt a timing hunt and you want to kill a big deer every year, you just need to allot. Time is everything.
Yeah.
And I'm the worst. Like I'm the same as what you just said. I'm 5 days here, then I'm 5 days there, and then I'm hunting from August 15th through the end of October, pretty much. But I'm moving around, and I hit it good in some spots, but I definitely have some hunts where if I would have just weeded out a few hunts and done a little bit longer periods of time, which can be tough to do if you're going with an outfitter. I mean, not all my hunts are with outfitters, obviously, but you kind of got to go with what their timing is. But yeah, dude, like not allotting enough time is something I still haven't learned. I know it, but I need to learn to listen to myself.
Yeah. And just knowing something and remembering it at the time. That was like me and other people too. Like that's another pendulum that I go back and forth on. And hunting with other people kind of bit me in the ass this year. And it's not like, the one dude was a bit of a dick, but it's just I know what I want. And I call me selfish, whatever. I know what I want and I know how I want to do it. And I'm a kind of guy, I'd rather go out on my own shield. Like I'd rather go out there, fail on my own, and then that be that. Be like, okay, it was based on my decisions. But I'm also at the point where I still got lots to learn. I still like you were talking about being with the outfitter in New Mexico. Like I'm trying to put myself in situations where I'm around other people who've either been hunting longer or have more, experience with a particular species. And I found that was the other thing that really bit me in the ass this year was like kind of compromising what I wanted to do in order to fit in what other people wanted to do. And it was like, it's not happening next year. Like I got my game plan. I'm super keyed in on it. There's going to be some room to hunt with other people, but it's more like, listen, this is what I'm doing. This is what I'm going. If that works, awesome. Let's make it work. If not, that's okay too. No hard feelings. I'll just go do my own thing.
Yeah, dude. I don't. I mean, I hunt honestly most of the time. I mean, I've got a lot of friends that are outfitters and guides, and I've hunted with them over and over throughout the years.
Yeah.
But for the most part, I just plan my hunts by myself. I may be hunting with a buddy, but he may be an outfitter. Like I don't have any buddies that I go on hunts with. I do, but they're also guys like Garrett that I hunt with in Oklahoma, and I've hunted with him in Africa. But we'll plan a hunt together, and we'll go, go do a hunt. But for the 90% of the time, like I'm just planning my own stuff because I can't rely on other people, and I'd rather just go by myself. To be
Yeah.
honest, I mean it is too hard to either one give up the reins to somebody else and let them plan it, and then like you say, like you're at the end of the like you're like, well, what are we doing? Well, you might get a guy that's not a planner. He's like, oh, we'll figure it out in 2 weeks. I'm like, well, we leave in 3, so like, what are we doing?
Yeah.
And so I just kind of learned that whether I'm DIYing or going on a hunt to some place that I've even never been, to hunt with an outfitter that I've never been with, I'm just gonna go by myself because
Yeah.
it's just too hard to rely on other people. It can be pretty frustrating. I mean,
Yeah, I got this thing I'm kind of working on before the end of the year, and I'll catch myself like, oh, maybe I should call that guy, or oh, maybe I should, and I'm like, stop, no, like not now, and it's just like even for my own peace of mind, like I didn't get that. I did for a little bit on goat, I guess, but like I didn't get that. Just go away by myself, do my own thing for a week, especially with all the guiding I did this year. Like it's just nonstop, man. Like people and talking and questions and blah 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 blah. I almost got in this one beef with this one guy, and I was like, "There's elements of my personality that do not lend themselves to being a guide, and there's probably some personal growth that's going to need to occur over the next couple of years here." Um, but that's the other thing, because I'll even convince myself, like, oh, maybe my odds would be better if I took somebody because they could sit behind the glass while I went in on stocks. And I'm like, just stop. I'd rather go out and come home with nothing and have just a nice, peaceful time away by myself than ended up going with somebody and then it blows up in my face again and all the rest of it. So luckily, I had one guy, the guy I did goat with this year. He's a good buddy and he is turning into like a long-term hunting partner. Like the connection is there. I can be in camp with him. He's not somebody who needs to talk all the time. He's super reliable. He's a great hunter, but he's not someone who feels like he's got to express his ego all the time. And that, if I was going to look at like one highlight of the whole year, because that was our first hunt together, it would be, kind of forming that relationship. Because I do think it's like a training partner at the gym. That's the other thing. I've always trained solo, but I'm not going to lie. I've had a couple times in my life where I had a great training partner. And I do think it's like either give me a great training partner or no training partner at all. Because a mediocre one is just like a mediocre hunting buddy. I'd rather not, it's got to be fucking awesome or nothing at all.
for sure. No, I'm the same way. Well, I'm too big of a pussy to train with anybody anyway. I mean, like I can train with my wife and she like, but yeah, I mean, a hunting partner, I've got some good buddies that I hunt with now and then, but
Yeah.
we all have different goals. Like I have
Yeah.
different, like you kind of start out and everybody's different. Like, you like elk hunting. I fucking kind of hate it now, but I've just been beaten down by it. I'm just
Yeah.
like, I'm just done hunting these public land more people than elk hunts. Like I just kind of like if I go on a elk hunt, I want to go on something with where I draw decent. I've never had a decent tag. Never
Yeah.
had a drawn and they're getting harder to get.
Yep.
But I'm kind of chasing different species now, and some of my buddies, I want to go on this hunt or that hunt or whatever, and they're like, why do you want to kill a muskox? Like, who gives a shit about a muskox? I'm like, why? I've never killed one, and like going and freezing my dick off sounds kind of
Yeah.
like he's like, so I've got certain buddies that I can go on some of this stuff with, but 90% of the time I don't even ask because I know that the money thing is getting kind of out of control.
Yep.
And if you're not chasing, and I'm not saying I'm chasing the 29, but I'm chasing as much of it as I can.
Yeah.
And if you're not doing that, some of the stuff I'm doing doesn't make any sense. Like, why do you need 5 different caribou species? Like, who gives a shit? Like, I'll go shoot one. You know what I mean? So
I think finding somebody with the same level of commitment is tough too, because what I get all the time is like, oh yeah, I'm die hard. And then you get out there and it's like, you start going the way you go. And it's like, the wheels start falling off. And it's like, no, like, there's just different levels of, and I'm not trying to say I'm some Billy Badass. In fact, I'm probably a bit of an asshole out there. I know I am, because it's like, I won't talk about certain decisions. And when you start saying, well, maybe it's not a good idea to go over there, you can feel me get kind of like, I'm sure I'm a bit of a dick to be around when I'm out there, but it's because, yeah, I'm mission focused. Like, I'm here to do something, and that's the goal. And I'm not going to be happy the whole time, and it's not going to be sunshine and roses. But finding people with that similar level of commitment, I think, is also really challenging.
Well, and personalities, man. Like,
yeah,
I think you and I would get along. Like, you and I would get along really well until we didn't, and then it would be fucking terrible, and I'd be dead. Like, because I am a dick too. Like, I'm an asshole.
Yeah,
and like, I know that you could throw me from off the fucking mountain, and it wouldn't even. You could do it with one fucking hand. But you and I have a lot of personality similarities.
for sure.
But also, like you say, I mean, it's a good way to kind of almost lose a friend. Like,
oh yeah,
you go with somebody the first 4 or 5 days, you can get along, and then all of a sudden you're stuck in a tent together, and you're just like, I don't know if I like this fucking guy anymore. Like,
that's what happened with the dude in
friends.
Wyoming, and we didn't really even know each other. But I feel like if we would have just done like normal stuff together, like gone and played around a golf or just like normal stuff. Yeah. Like, I think we would have probably gotten along just fine. Like, he was not a bad guy. Yes. I think he had some character issues. I think he kind of oversold some of his experience and stuff. And I don't need to do a deep dive into that again. There were definitely some underlying issues of integrity that probably long-term wouldn't have been one of my closest friends. But on the superficial level, he was easy to talk to. We liked the same things. We both have young families. Like, it was like, as the pressure started to build on the hunt, it was just like the dam started giving away, and all those things that you could kind of let pass are just like pounding in the back. Like, I want to grab this guy by the throat and put him through the fucking wall. You know what I mean? Like, yeah.
I've been on that. I've been on that hunt. I've been stuck in Alaska for 9 fucking days with a guy that by the end of it, I was just like, I'm going to bed. Like, I got to get the fuck out of here. And we were staying in the same tent. It was terrible.
That was like with this guy. We got in this scrap in the middle of the night, and then it's just dark in the tent. And I'm just like, fuck, dude, this is like trying to go to bed with your wife after an argument. Like, this is awkward as fuck. And I've got nowhere to go. Like, you're 4 feet away on the other side of this fucking teepee. And it's just like, oh my God, I was like, I wish I just never opened my fucking mouth, but that's my problem is I hit that limit, and then like floodgates are open, and
it's truly like it's truly as close to a marriage as it gets, because you are 1,000% together, relying on each other for that situation, especially when you're in the backcountry. Like, you are, the only thing is to pull the plug and divorce, I mean, get out. Like, so, and neither one of you maybe wants to do that. So, like, it is a different situation. Like you say, I mean, you can hang around certain people for a certain amount of time, have them over. But a hunting partner is it's a completely different intimate relationship, especially, dude, there's a reason why almost all outfitters and guides carry their own tent.
Oh
Like
yeah.
they don't give a shit. Like if they're guiding a real pussy and they have to carry his shit, they're carrying two tents, like
Yeah.
always.
Yeah.
And there's, and I'm the same as you. Like I was gonna maybe go do. There was a time period in my life where I was gonna go maybe be an outfitter or a guide for a while. Like I had some offers to go do it, and I almost did, but deep down, I just knew that the way that I am, and I mean, I can be cordial. Like I own a business, but I'm not the type. Like I'm the type that will ignore my phone and then call them back like a couple hours later. Let them leave a voicemail because I know what's coming. Like I
Yeah.
know that they're gonna bitch about something and piss me off. So I've got to like wait a couple hours till I've calmed down, and then I can be that customer service guy.
Yeah.
But you're in the and yeah, there was a reason why I didn't do the outfitting and guiding thing because I just don't. It doesn't suit my personality well. Like I'm like you, you're obviously better at it than I would be, but I have mouth diarrhea. Obviously, I mean, I just and I mean, I had a situation at. Normally, I leave politics and religion. I'm out. Like I don't. When you're at camp or whatever. But we were at a on my caribou hunt, and it was
Yeah.
a rough hunt. Like I don't know if I told you about it, but
Yeah. It was like nobody. Weren't you the only one? And like 9 dudes.
so there was let's see, there was 8 of us, I think,
For
in camp.
starters, that's a shitload of hunters in a camp.
Dude, a lot of hunters, but I
A
mean,
lot
I
of
guess
space, I guess, too.
if it was a lot of area, and if there was, I mean, if there was thousands of caribou running through there, it would have been great. But
Yeah.
out of 8, so 8 guys saw 5 bull caribou and killed 4 of them. I was
Okay.
the only one that I almost got the one that I saw 5 minutes in, but that's neither here nor there. So the hunt was a little testy. Everybody was kind of, like, but at the end, like towards the end, there was 2 guys and they were super religious. And I mean, one of them was like a preacher.
Okay.
In my mouth, I try, like, I'm like, all right, this guy's so I'm going to try to say fuck a few less times. Like, I'm going to try to do my best, but I grew up. That's just how I grew up. I'm a roughneck. But at the end, they got to talking religion, and I said something. I'm not even gonna go over it. But finally, I was just like, "Can you guys just not fucking put your bullshit on me? Like, I
Yeah.
have my own beliefs. Isn't that okay?" Is all
Yeah.
I said. Like, and then of course we're all staying in the same tent, and they're like, "Oh man, I didn't mean to," And I'm like, "Listen, I got fed. Like, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
but I have my own thoughts." And I told you what they were. I mean, I believe in a God, but I don't go to church. Like I was just kind of like, can you stop just inundating me with what you think and be okay with what I think? And and but it was awkward. Like we were all in the same tent, and luckily there was only a day left or whatever it was. But they, and they felt bad about it, and they kind of apologized. But I was like, listen, you're just making it worse. Like,
Yeah.
let's just forget that any of this happened. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's just it's a weird dynamic when you're out there, especially when things aren't going good. Because no matter what,
Yep.
if things aren't going good on the hunt, you start analyzing everything.
Yeah.
You start wondering, like, does my wife even like me? What about my kids? Like, am I treating my kids the right? You're just
Oh yeah. Business
yeah,
stuff starts to, and that was it for me. Like that was the other thing that made this year so challenging is that like I'm going through a big transition business wise, and I'm not going to pretend that like everything is great and I'm set for the next 20 years. Like I threw some dice, man, and it's like it is not set in stone that some of my gambles are going to pay off. Um, And so that doubt starts to creep in when you're out there. And it's like, I always tell people, you got to clean your house before you go to the backcountry, because if you've left after a fight with and I know these things, but having some of those like financial things up in the air and not being as stable as, as soon as the whole house of cards just starts to crumble, and everything that thought you felt confident in, you start to have doubts in, and then that makes you get in a worse mood. And then and the whole thing just, the snowball rolls down the hill.
Absolutely. Well, and I mean, we talked about it a little bit last time, but that whole cleaning your house thing is my whole spiel about earning your hunt. Like, you got to have your shit together so that you're going to dwell on that stuff no matter what. But as long as you can like go back and check the boxes again, like, oh man, I did everything. I did this. That definitely helps with that. But yeah, I don't know. It can be, hunting is so mental. It's just, I don't know if there's another mental, I can't really think of anything that will challenge you more mentally than hunting.
I think that's why I fell in love with it the way I did. Like, I tried all the man stuff, jujitsu, CrossFit, everything else. And then when I found hunting, and specifically like mountain hunting, like the stuff that, is a little bit more rugged and a little bit more psychologically challenging, I was like, oh, this brings everything together for me. It brings together the physical, the mental, the emotional, and then there's a goal at the end. Like these like 4x4 clubs, I'm like, I don't understand the point of taking your truck, but tell me I got to get over that ridge to like, to a trailhead. All of a sudden I love 4x4 in my truck. Or hiking. I don't want to hike to the top of the mountain, but tell me there's elk on the other side of that mountain. I'll hike up the mountain all day. Like, it was the perfect blend of everything. And then you've got the solitude. You got to be really smart. You got to put together maps and gear lists and everything else. And I really do believe, and I'm sure I'm biased, but in a lot of ways, it's the perfect, and I don't even know what you call it, sport, discipline, whatever, who gives a shit. But for me anyways, it is the perfect thing for me to be obsessed with, because it brings together everything that I'm looking to challenge myself with. And there's nothing else that does it to the same degree. And it'll bring out the best, but it'll also bring out the worst in you.
Oh, for sure. And like, the thing I love about it the most is you touched on it earlier, is no matter how long you've done it, no matter how much success you've had, you could be the greatest hunter in the world, and it can kick you square in the teeth. Like, a couple of my buddies and I have been talking about it this year. Like, seriously, there's times where you're like, have I even done this before? Like, what in the hell did I, like, you'll make a super rookie mistake, or whatever. Like, it's funny that you do get more experience with hunting and you do get better at it. But I think what you truly get beyond the experience is you get the confidence to know that if I just keep going, if I just keep churning, eventually this is going to work out. And I'd say that's probably the biggest thing that I see with guys that are really successful, is they just never quit. And I know that sounds super like inspirational and whatever. Like, it's not but that is the truth. Like, everybody experiences the hardships in hunting. There is a lot of luck involved in hunting, because an animal, even if you're the smartest, you can't read their minds. You have like, I love these guys who are like, I know exactly what an elk is saying. No, you don't. Shut up. Like, have you ever been a fucking elk? Like, yes, you probably have a better idea because you've been out there, you've been with them, but calm down on I know exactly what they're thinking. And an animal is going to go one way, or, I mean, there is a lot of luck that factors into what we do. And when you're having a lot of bad luck, I think a lot of the guys that are unsuccessful just say, it's never going to happen. I'm done.
Yeah.
And,
I think the other piece of that puzzle is that the guys who have been doing it long enough to have the grit to stick it out to the end, but then have also, like we were talking about earlier, with time, have created a life where they can stick around a little longer if need be. I think Lampers is great. I got no issues with him. Had him on the podcast. I think he's probably one of the best hunters going these days. Last year, he killed his elk in 16 days. And I'm like, you do understand for the most guys, that's like 2 to 3 years worth of elk hunting. And so I don't want to take anything away from him. Nothing but respect for him. But like that's not reality for most people. But if you're as disciplined as he is, and it's like, I mean, I'm sure he's got to have some conversations with my wife, because if I say I'm going to be gone for 10 days and I turn it into 16, it's like that can be an uncomfortable conversation to have as well. But when you can put those two things together, the grit to stick it out to the end, and then the functional ability to create a lifestyle where you can, if you're getting close, but I can't tell you how many hunts. Like I was just starting to figure the area out on day 6 or 7, and then I got to turn around and go home. And if I've had that 2 or 3 more days at the end, and I think that's the other thing where people got to be careful comparing themselves to other people. Like it's good to be inspired by these guys, but be very clear that like you don't have the same ability as far as lifestyle as they do. And like that's a lot of what plays into their success. Like a lot more people would be successful if they could literally go hunt elk for 16 straight days. And that's just not realistic for most people.
Absolutely, dude. That's a great, like, that is probably, I've never heard, I'm sure other people have talked about it, but that's very few people talk about that. They want to say, this guy is just, he's a slayer. He gets it done all the time, but they don't factor in that amount of time they spend. I mean, and I fall victim to it myself. Like, Lampers or Remy Warren or some of these guys that are just constantly, and this is not arrogant, but people are like, Jesus Christ, you just kill one animal after another. I'm like, that's because I'm hunting every fucking day. Yeah. I've been hunting every single day since August 20th or whatever. And they're like, well, how do you do that? And that's what that's my whole spiel. Like, build your life around this. If you want to do that, if that's what you want, there is a route to that end.
Yeah.
If a knuckle dragger like myself, a redneck like myself, electrician, I don't have a big company or nothing like that. You can figure out little avenues to where you can get more time in the field. And that is what teaches you how to be a better hunter. The more time you're out there, the more you're familiar with hunting, familiar with animals, familiar with how to kill. Killing more animals is you figure all that stuff out. But also you have like you said, like you're going to have more success the more time you put in it. Like, yes, you learn more spending more time out there, but you also have more time to have more success. So, I don't know, man. It is something nobody really talks about is these guys that they hunt every day. Like, but you don't have to be in the industry to do it. Like, it's not. You don't.
In fact, in a lot of ways, like, dude, you know how many, especially lately, I've had so many thoughts. I'm like, maybe I should have just kept consulting. Like, dude, I billed out at $250 an hour. Like, you know how many few billable hours you need to work in order to make ends meet at $250 an hour? Like, I could have had 6 months a year. The problem was and the reason it came to an end is I was having a real hard time, like, transitioning back and forth. You know what I mean? Like, and giving clients the attention they deserved. And like, my mind would always be in two places, and I lost the passion for it. And I'm one of those guys, like, I can't fake the funk, man. Like, as soon as I'm done with something, like, listen, I can be the best worker on the planet. I will put anybody under the table. But as soon as I don't really give a shit, like, I'm the worst guy. Like, I will phone it in. I don't give a shit. And so it's also kind of an illusion. But listen, if you have a job that, like, you can tolerate and you can make good money at, part of me is like, dude, none of these, it wasn't even, I was actually having this conversation with Cliff the other day. These guys aren't making actual money. These guys, like, influencer, the shit deals they're getting, like, trust me, I get them all the time. The shit deals they're getting offered, like, You are not going to build a life, support a family, and create, generational stability from your family by being a whore for Vortex. I promise you, you are not Levi Morgan. You are not Remy Warren. Like, if you played basketball, you ain't fucking Michael Jordan either. Like, these are the things everybody looks at, but it's like, that's not who you're going to be. At best, you're going to get 5 to 10 grand worth of free gear every year and maybe be able to pay for some hunts. And you're going to sacrifice all of your integrity in order to do that. I tell it to kids all the time. And I actually recommend the trades specifically because of your example. Like, once you put your time in and you build some respect, I have guys like my one hunting partner is a heavy duty mechanic, and he's the journeyman for his shop, and he has it set where he can take the entire month of September off. That's his 4 weeks holidays. And as long as he gives the owner notice, he can kind of take holidays wherever else he wants because he's key to that business. He clears 6 figures a year and like gets to leave early in the fall to go do his whitetail hunting before dark at night and stuff. And he's just been very honest with his boss. But in the same breath, you can also fly your own flag, open up your own subcontracting shop. You can choose when to take jobs, when not to take jobs. And I think with the shortages in the labor market that we're looking at with all the boomers retiring, I think the trades is a phenomenal place to be. And if you want to hunt 3-4 months out of the year, 100% that's doable. And I think it's way easier to do that than try and have a profession in the industry.
I agree, man. I have, it's funny, like the social media hiatus thing really kind of woke me up because for a long time I've been saying, I don't care about being an influencer. I don't want to be, I don't want to be, we all want to be famous, no matter what. Everybody wants to be well known. I mean, it's just your ego wants acknowledgement for what you're doing. I mean, that's normal. But I had been saying, like, I don't want, that's not what I want. I don't want to be an influencer. I'm just going to, but I would catch myself tagging companies and still playing that game. And I'm like, and when I quit with the social media, I was like, oh, yeah. Oh, I'm just going to be, I enjoy my work mostly because I have a lot of leeway in it, and I still make the money that I want to. I still get to hunt and I still get to do, like, I do enjoy building shit. Like, I do enjoy that. So, but I wouldn't, to be honest, I wouldn't want to do it every single day, 365 days a year. I wouldn't want that. But the way I've got it set up where I get to hunt a lot, and then I also can still make the money when I see opportunities and I can gather that time. That's what I want. So I was just like, all right, I don't need this bullshit. Like, I'm just going to be what I say that I'm going to be. I'm just going to fucking post my pictures and my story for people that enjoy it. I mean, that's why I do the podcast, mostly because I don't have fucking anything else to do while I'm driving. It doesn't take any time out of my day to kind of share my life.
Yeah.
But I'm only sharing it as an example of, say, like, you don't have to have sponsors. You don't have to do all this bullshit to go hunting. Like, it's almost easier if you don't. Like, I'm not tied to anything. Like, nobody can say, oh, Jake, you said, the wrong word on a podcast, which I've said thousands on I've said horrible stuff that most companies would call and be like, oh, we're not sponsoring you anymore.
Yep.
Okay. Like, I don't care. Like, I buy your shit anyway. Like, I just get to do whatever I want, hunt whatever I want, when I want. Like, why wouldn't you want that life as opposed to being tied to this machine that is broken? Like, the industry is so broken.
I think it's external validation, man. And I've talked about this before, because if you say you're sponsored, that means you've gotten, like, the golden touch from one of these big brands.
Right.
And because you don't feel internally validated, you are seeking that through some type of external source. Like, dude, I had these 2 young guys on the podcast last night. Their Instagram's Borderland Hunting. Give them a shout out. They're both 24 years old. They grew up together. They're addicted. They're obsessed. And they've had a season of a lifetime. Killed a great goat, killed a great mule deer, killed a great elk. Um, the one dude is shooting a 270 Savage his dad gave him in 2012. Doesn't give a fuck, man. His entire gear list came off of Amazon. His rangefinder was $50. I was like, bro, I got some gear. They send me stuff. I'll hook you up. Like, these guys don't care. Like, and they still film their hunts. Like, I think it's evolutionary. We're tribal people. We like to share our stories. And I think that's gotten bastardized. And we're meant to feel like shame about that. And I think the motivational honesty, like, it's not always what you do, but why you do it. Like, these kids are obsessed. They hang in cameras on every single weekend they have off. They've structured their holidays. They both have pretty blue collar jobs. Like, they live in a pretty rural area of British Columbia, but they're loving their life. They have a great hunting buddy. They're putting away like quality age class animals in some of the best hunting. And I was like, it was so refreshing and inspiring because I get so many DMs. Oh, how do I get sponsored and this and that? And I'll see these new guys pop up and tag, this company and that. And I'm just like, stop. Like, you're going about this the wrong way. And to have those guys on and have that conversation, and there was not a single question about the industry or anything else. It was just like three dudes talking about hunting. And it was like, it was refreshing, man, and inspiring, and like made me very encouraged because not everybody is coming up looking to whore themselves out for brand deals. Like, there are some really good kids coming up who just love hunting and want to share hunting. And like, those are the type of people that I want to support, and I want to see more of those in the industry.
To be honest, that's why I continue doing what I'm doing. Like, I'm not kidding. Like, I was on social media for like 30 minutes and I already had fucking anxiety. Yeah. Like, I had a million messages and some of them were like, "Oh, did you see what fucking Snyder said about you?" I'm like, "No, I didn't. I don't anyway." Like, it's just like I just can't. I don't know why we're just obsessed with that. Like, and I just had to be like, all right, I'm just gonna stay on it for the people that, because a lot of the messages are like, man, like, guys lose weight because of me, or guys get into hunting because of me, or take their kid. Like, I've had a lot of people say like, oh man, I bought my daughter a crossbow or a little recurve because your daughter shoots a bow, or whatever. Like, there is a purpose for social media, and I don't want to completely get off of it, but I wish, like the two guys you were talking about, I wish there was more people that would just say, all right, I'm going to quit following some of these toxic human beings,
Yeah.
because there's a lot of them, and I'm going to follow, these two guys that are just out there hunting. And the reason I'm going to follow them is because they're like-minded, like they're just guys. They're just hunters. And everybody's looking for a sponsorship. And I say I'm a hypocrite. I learned over the years, like there was time where I wanted to, I was going to be something in the industry or whatever. And then the more I got indoctrinated into it, or whatever you say, I figured out that is not what that's not what you want. Like,
I think you start to see behind the curtain, because I was the same way, man.
Oh.
Because when you first are like coming up, or you first look to that, you're like, oh, I want that. That looks great to me. Going on these hunts, you're around these great people, you're killing big animals, like, it's a party. Everything's awesome. And then you start to figure out like what it really looks like and what you're really having to sacrifice. And it's like, oh shit, no, for that? No, I don't want that. And I don't know. I had this big turning point in my life. I think I was in my early 30s. It was right before I met my wife, living downtown Vancouver, full-time DJ and personal trainer, like the douchiest thing you could possibly be, and fully absorbed into the city life. Like, it was everything. And then I got a call from my old boss, who I used to do forestry work for. And he's like, I'm in a bind. I need somebody for 2 weeks. It's a solo gig. Come up, I'll give you a really good day rate. And I kind of had nothing going on. And I ended up spending 2 weeks in the bush by myself on snowshoes, just like flagging out this one block. And it like completely. I remember driving back into the city and just like, it was like somebody, clean the windscreen or something. And I was just like, I hadn't been seeing right for the past couple years, Um, and I feel like that's what happens to people in the industry too, is this like, I think lots of them had good intentions to begin with, and they've just never lifted their heads and realized like, oh, this is what I'm doing now, or this is who I've become. And, um, yeah. And I think that I'm grateful that I've had those periods in my life where I was able to give my head a shake and kind of just like your social media abstinence did for you. It's like cleans out the cobwebs and gives you that like mental reset. So you're like headed back in the right direction and in alignment with your own values and beliefs again.
Yeah, dude, that is exactly what it was. Just set my head straight, I mean, I'm falling back into it a little bit, and I've catch myself, jumping on there a little more than I thought I would. So I've just kind of, and I left that app in the little subgroup, so it's
Yeah.
harder to find. Like but I do find myself, if I jump on my phone for something else, I don't go straight to that
Right.
anymore. That's gone.
Yeah.
But I do, I'll get bored, whatever, go take a crap, and you're like, oh, well, here's social media, whatever. Like I've fallen back into that trap. But yeah, it's having that reset is unbelievable. And I don't think people get that, because we as a species now, like we're so tied into phones. I mean, even when I go hunting, like you were talking about, I listen to podcasts now and do the same thing. And I almost feel bad about it, but I also am like, this is actually making me less, missing. I don't miss home as much.
Yep.
It helps. There is a lot of good with technology, a
Yep.
lot, and a lot of bad. And I think we just have to kind of weed through the minefield, and everybody's different. I mean, I'm sure there's some jackass out there listening going, you guys listen to podcasts while you're out in the woods? I just sit out there. I sit out there and I think, calm down, sir. Like everybody's experience is different. And that's the other thing I hate, is when people have to label and put their stigma on you. Like if you're not hunting this way, you're not doing it right. Like that, there's nothing more that pisses me off.
Like I like what you said best. Like social media for you could disappear tomorrow and there would be zero functional difference in your life. And I thought about it. I'm like, okay, maybe I would have to go do something different for work because I use it for a lot of like business generation. But if I think about what matters to me, none of it would change.
Right.
Family's here, friends are here, like my house is here, like everything that actually matters to me and who I am as a man, none of it changes.
Yeah, dude, it's a good tool, but you just got to be careful with it. And the whole beef thing, like you were talking, that is like, I find myself, people that I don't know, I judge them. But I won't do it publicly. I know that's a douchey move, because I get plenty of that shit as you do. I get people that are like, oh yeah, it must be nice to have, all that money and go fuck around all the time. I'm like, well, I'm just a, blue collar electrician. Like, fuck, come hang out with me for a day.
That's the one that shocks me the most, because I get it too. And it's like, are you trying to celebrate the fact that you're a lazy piece of shit? Because like in my world, you want more money, you go do more work. So like you're shitting on me because I had enough discipline and work ethic to go make money. Like, I'm like, what fucking world are we living in where that's what you're going to shit on me about?
Dude, it's insane. Yeah. Like these people, like there's people that shit, and Cam Haynes, like that guy, he gets shit on all the time, but I'm
constantly.
It's not like, he was fucking Bill Jordan's son or something that grew up and just got handed. And I'm not saying that that's maybe a bad analogy, but I mean, he built He just had a
Dude, he
passion
had a
for it.
fucking day job. I've gone 180 on Cam. I used to totally think he was a douche. And actually I've totally come 180 degrees on it. That dude held down literally like a day job as like a superintendent for a utilities company or something in Oregon up until like a year or two
Yeah.
ago when the guy could have the size of his following and that like he is that guy that's going to have like six-figure deals and like real
Yes.
legitimate sponsorships. And he still went to work every day. And if you look at his early hunts with him and Roy and what he was doing for a living and how he paid for all that stuff, like, yeah, that dude did not win a lottery. You know what I mean?
There's
Like,
no one that's earned it more, and there's nobody there. Not, there may be other people that earned it as much, but there's nobody as disciplined
no.
as that guy. And I'm like well, I actually just pissed him off the other day. He actually read one of my messages, and it I was wrong. I was wrong, and like I said, so social media. If I don't know you personally, if I've never had you in my house or talked to you in person, I'll 1000% think you're a douche or think horrible things about you. Want to say, maybe I'll even type it, but I won't actually do it.
Yeah.
But if I know you personally, like I will fucking talk shit 100%. And the other day, I just could not stand it. I was fucking gutting a deer, and I should have handled it way differently, but he had just done a fucking podcast with my fucking nemesis, who I know personally and know plenty of bad shit about. Like, he is the devil. But Cam called him a legend, and I lost my fucking mind. I lost my goddamn mind. I just messaged him. I'm like, that dude's the devil. Very, very, and I should never have done it. I know better. I know fucking better than to throw that out there in the web, because he doesn't know me. And that's basically what he said. And I was 1000%. I thought, there's no way he's going to read this fucking message.
Yeah.
And of course,
and then he does.
He messaged me back and he's like, I don't know you. Whatever. I hate people that talk shit that I don't know. And I'm like, you know what? I agree with you there. But I said, you don't know him and I do. Like, I was just like, I shouldn't have said it, but ultimately, I don't know why I went on that tirade, but I think Cam is a great person. I do. He gets a lot of shit and he's got a giant following, and there are a lot of things that I don't agree with, like some of his books that he writes on his posts about not loving to kill, like just he wishes he could fucking release, shoot an animal, take the meat, and then like release it back and like catch and release. I'm like let's not make hunting too fucking gay. Like, let's keep it what it is. It's primal, but also in the same sense, like there's nobody being as good of an ambassador as that guy. Like, it's funny. Like, I find it very hard to believe. Like, let's just talk Steve Rinella.
Yeah.
And whatever, you can cut some of this shit out if you want, but a lot of people don't like Steve. And I don't necessarily agree with Steve on a lot of things. And I think I'm going to keep my personal opinion of the guy out of, but I think he's a good ambassador. And the reason, and I'm growing more appreciative of him, like my son, we've been watching Meat Eater constantly. He's 4. My son is 4. And he loves it because it's a good show. It shows how the hunt is done, and then they eat the animal at the end. Yeah. And that is how we live. And like, we shot a rabbit the other day, and he was like, Dad, that rabbit looks delicious. You know what I mean? It wasn't like, hey, I can't wait to show my friends this. Let's take a picture for my friends. It was, man, what are we going to cook with this?
Yeah.
So a lot of those guys, like him and Haynes, and they're taking shit from all these people, some people that I actually know pretty well. They beat them up over this deal, but then they leave some of these toxic people alone that are in the industry. I'm just like, what is happening? I don't really follow And again, I don't know why I went down this road. I guess it's been on my mind a little bit because there's like 4 or 5 like guys that are really influential. Cam Hanes, Steve Rinella, that a lot of people, non-hunters,
Listen, dude,
Rogan.
I really struggle with the Rogan issue. And
Yeah,
I don't say anything because I know where it's going to go. Oh, you're just hating. And it's like, no, I'm not, I don't give a fuck where he hunts. But, he did that big spiel on his podcast about, oh, having your own spots is ridiculous. And what are you talking about? It's public land. And like, that's coming from a motherfucker who has never once, as a 50-something-year-old man, ever had to find a spot. I mean,
right,
you don't even know what that concept is. How can you get on some pulpit and say you love hunting when you've, like, listen, man, I'll say it. You have never hunted. You've killed,
right.
but you've been chaperoned by professional killers. That's all you've ever done is been held by the hand, led to an animal, and told to pull a trigger. And like, listen, that's fine. I don't care. You want to go pay $25K and kill an elk in Utah every year and put pictures of backstrap? That's the other thing. Is that the only thing you eat, bro? Because that's literally, I don't know about you, but like my elk backstrap is like this big and like it's gone in a couple weeks. I don't know how many backstraps you have because all you do is post backstrap 12 months out of the year. Anyways, I don't care if you want to go kill $25,000 elk on ranches with Jocko and Black Rifle Coffee and all the rest of it. Fill your boots. But it's like, and I struggle with this because what I wanted to say was that's not hunting.
Right.
It is hunting. And I don't want to condemn another man's version of hunting. But what that isn't is attainable for all the dudes who are like, oh, that's what it is. I'm going to go do this. The other thing is like, dude, it took me 5 years to kill my first elk. I wouldn't trade that shit for $1 million. And what bugs me is like people see that and then that's what they want. And it's like, you're missing the whole point. Like, this is a vehicle for self-discovery to like learn who we are, push ourselves to our limits. And the reason Rogan came to mind is like, I think we all literally watched him break as a hunter on a hunt with Rinella. I think it was the Prince of Wales blacktail hunt where they were stuck in a tent for like a week in the rain. And I think Rinella, and I too think Rinella does more good than bad. And I owe Meat Eater getting me into backcountry hunting. Like that was the first time I'd even seen a backcountry hunter. I didn't even know what it was before then. And you watched him go on that hunt and you kind of watched him psychologically break. And he's never done like a legit mountain hunt again since then. And again, I don't hate on Rogan. I listen to Rogan not super regularly. The podcast gets a bit repetitive for me, but like if there's a really good guest, go on there. Like I listen to the Trump thing. I listen to the JD Vance thing. I think he's probably the greatest podcaster that's ever existed. Dude is a fucking genius at what he does. I have nothing but respect for him. It just bugs me that he talks about hunting with such authority, but he's never had to figure out how to hunt. And it's like, just acknowledge that. Do you know what I mean? Like, I pay a guy to come do plumbing. I don't pretend I'm a fucking plumber. Right. I'm a guy who hired a plumber.
The problem is, here's what I think about Rogan. And I agree with you. Like, all of his comments, they just come from a place of inexperience.
100%.
And I don't fault him fully for this. The biggest problem is he's never had anybody on that doesn't just agree and lick his ass. Like it's not like, and I'm not saying like Cam will kind of like navigate around. Like when they were talking like find another trailhead, you could tell like that made Cam like uncomfortable, but he wasn't going to be like, whoa, he wasn't going to get in a debate. But that's what fucking needs to happen. If you've ever, I mean, I don't listen to all his podcasts either, but I do listen because I think he is like very, and I can't, I mean, anyway, he is.
Nothing will crush a road trip like 3 hours of Rogan. You know what I'm saying?
You listen, you learn a lot. You know, I mean, that's fucking where I get half my news.
Yeah.
But if you ever listen to him, if somebody comes on and debates with him, and they'll change his mind, and he'll
Yeah.
be like, oh. So, but what I think has happened is fucking Dudley and all these guys have gone on there
Yeah.
and been like, oh yeah, you're exactly right. This is
Yeah.
all there is.
Yeah.
And so it's just all in inexperience. So
And
I go
no,
ahead.
continue. No, you go ahead.
I was just going to say, I can tell that. And I can tell that if he had somebody on that actually had a debate, like, hey man, like, this is, and maybe brought up some of that stuff with Ranella. Like, he's talked a little bit about that
Yeah.
experience, how horrible it was.
Yeah.
And if he had like that exchange where he could change his mind and stop, like he truly thinks that because Dudley said that you set up a bow sight with whatever that Archer's advantage, that's the only fucking way that you do it.
Yeah.
Like he'll say, like, this is how you do it. And it's so matter of fact, this is it. And so I take what he says with a grain of salt, because I know it's just coming from inexperience.
Yeah.
But I also, like, there's so many people that are hating on him, like him, Ranella, Rogan, or Haynes. They're all just like, these guys are ruining hunting. And I'm like, unfortunately, right now, the battle is like, we need people. Like, it's
we
just
do.
like,
and we need the fence sitters. And that's why I never say anything about these guys, because if you look at their overall impact, they're net positive. Yeah, okay, they piss off some old grouchy hunters. But if you want to talk about little mommy Sally, who's taken Billy to a soccer field and she thinks about hunting, it's fucking Rogan and Ranella she's thinking of. It ain't you by yourself chasing a fucking goat.
Right.
And they're going to be the ones that are going to get her to go, oh, maybe that's an acceptable lifestyle. And maybe the next time there's a vote on it, I should support it. So it's like, I shut my mouth. But the other thing that you touched on that I think you're 100% right on, he likes doing things the hard way. Yes. Like if you watch how he trains, if you watch the cold plunging, if you watch, like, quieting, shutting up your inner bitch, like the dude specifically, he's got more money than God, and he still goes out of his way to do something the hard way. And that's where I feel like those people who are his friends have robbed him of an experience, because you're 100% right. I think if somebody grabbed him and said, listen, man, but like, I get it. It's fun. And listen, I like doing some fun hunts. I've done outfitted whitetail hunts where I just show up, eat biscuits and gravy in the morning and go sit in a fucking stand for 12 hours. I didn't move the hay. I didn't do anything. I wrote a check. I'm all for it. We should have those fun hunts. We should do that fun stuff. But I think if somebody took them and said, listen, there's this other way of doing this thing that maybe you're not going to be as successful at, but I think there's some other elements of your personality they're going to get satisfied by this other experience that you're not getting right now. The other thing I think to myself sometimes, like, maybe this is just his fun thing. Maybe that dude has enough other hard shit in his life with comedy and UFC and his training, and he's decided that for hunting, I'm just going to do it this way. I'm going to go to big ranches. I'm going to go to private land. This is how I like to hunt. And then I'm like, okay, totally fair. Again, I'll just go back to my earlier comment. I just wish there was a bit of, and I think you're right. Like, it's just inexperience and ignorance, and not in a negative way. He honestly just, that's how he sees the world, because those are the experiences that he's had. But for those of us that have had different experiences, like, I always think how frustrating it must be to be a physicist and listen to Rogan. Because the way he talks about hunting for a guy who is obsessed with hunting, I'm like, bro, you're missing the boat on some pretty fundamental concepts. I'm like, he must do this because the dude has such a wide range of interests. He must talk out of his ass on all kinds of stuff. And it sounds to me like he knows what he's talking about on the other stuff. But experts in those fields must feel that same level of frustration with, like, you're kind of getting it, but you've also kind of missed the whole point.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of what you just said is right. I think, honestly, I don't think the guy has time. Like,
no,
he's not going on a fucking scouting trip.
No.
And I'm not saying, like, I am a guy, I do like everything from fucking high fence in Africa all the way to DIY, ibex hunt that I just went on for 10 days by myself. Like, the spectrum is wide, and I enjoy different aspects. Like I love those fun hunts, and I've had gimme hunts that were not fucking gimmies. Like I've sat for days upon days. Like that New Mexico hunt, that should have been a really gangbusters hunt, and we worked hard. We fucking
Yep.
climbed and hiked our asses off, and we didn't see shit. So, like, I never put any different kind of hunting into. I try not to say, because hunting is so diverse.
Yeah.
That you can go on a over the counter hunt and have like a rut fest, like crazy shit happen and be the only one in there. Like it can happen. Or you can go on a hunt and it's a giant nightmare. Like I don't ever downgrade a guy, like Rogan, especially that doesn't have much time and he goes on these hunts. I just am with you on like, it's not what you're saying is giving people the wrong idea. That's all I'm saying is stop.
100%. Yes.
And I think if he had a sit down conversation with a guy like you, because I'm too stupid to have an articulate, like you would be good on that podcast. Like you're very good at back and
Joe,
forth.
if I'm willing to come to Austin, I'm just putting it out there into the ether. If you want to have a bit of a bullshit, I will find time in my busy schedule.
Do it like all the influencers. Tag him in. Hey, Rogan, are you going to have me on? No.
Yeah.
But seriously, like if he had a sit down and a guy went like, hey, this is another way of doing it.
In a positive way, like not, that's the thing, like bashing him's not, because the guy is above bashing. Like with what he's done in his life, man, I don't give a fuck what you do with the rest of it. Like you crushed it more than I will ever 100%. Even come close
and to be honest, he is pretty fucking humble.
He really is.
I've never met him in person. So I don't know how but on the podcast.
But I don't think you can see that much. Like they were so right when they were talking about having the political people on. Like you cannot bullshit past like hour one. True. And having listened to that guy for the thousands of hours, if he was a piece of shit, it would you would know by now. Like it's just you just would, man. Like I really do feel like we have a pretty accurate representation of who he is as a man. We've seen him at his best. We've seen him at his worst. Like his whole life has been in the public spectacle for the past decade, if not more.
I agree. And that's why I truly think that at some point, he may have somebody on that will, when he says something, like every one of them you heard, I listened to Remy Warren on there and he'll say,
and he's the guy that I really thought he would be the one. Cause of all the, like him and Lampers to me are two of the guys that are really on the fence. Like they're big time. Everybody knows them. They're professionally sponsored, but I still respect the shit out of 100%. Them. Like they're fantastic hunters. Like they're hunters. Do you know what I mean? And when he had Remy on, I was like, oh, maybe, and it's like, but I get it. Do you go to another man's house and pick a fight with him? Like, no. Right. And I feel like that sometimes, even when I have guests on, people are like, oh, I thought you would have been harder. And I was like, I take the same attitude Rogan does. I'm just having a conversation, man. Right. Like I'm not some journalist that's trying to like get dirt on people no, I'm like trying to show respect and having a fun, enjoyable conversation.
Right.
And so I get it when people go on there, like, it's not the time or place, like to have some kind of confrontational conversation with a man in his own home.
You can tell all those guys, like you can tell it in their hesitation with the response and they don't say a lot, but if one person would you don't have to be like, just debate back with him like some of these other people do, he would get it. And I mean, we've burnt a lot of time on that, but those influential guys are ultimately good for hunting. Yes, and I think people need to look at them with perspective, just perspective, and say, okay, these guys, they're not gospel. Things that they say are not gospel, and maybe get your, like you don't necessarily use them as a role model. Fucking use the guy in your town that's constantly slaying stuff. Like there's a guy. Maybe you know who he is, and maybe use that guy as like your role model and learn shit from him. And I mean, you can get some gear advice. I mean, your stuff is good. Like people are like, where do I get gear advice? I'm like, fucking, there's only one person that is like known that I would listen to. Like, and it ain't fucking AS. Like, there's no more. You can't be more sponsored than that fucking guy. Like,
Well, I appreciate it because I was in camp and there was a tradbo hunter at mule deer camp. We'd never met before. And he shot a buck at 10 yards, man, dude. Absolute savage. His name's Taylor. Shout out Taylor. Shooting day 6, by the way.
hell yeah,
And I think we were gutting his deer. And we hadn't talked about what I do the whole trip. We'd been in camp together a few days already. And he said something about liking what I do. And I was like, oh, because like I don't bring it up when I'm in camp with guys unless
yeah,
the topic comes up. And he goes, yeah, Jake said to go watch your stuff for gear reviews. And it was like I had like my little moment because it's like you're the guy. Do you know what I mean? Like if that means more to me than some dude with 250,000 followers saying something because I know they're just full of shit anyways. But when it's just like, dude, I went to a trade show last year and these like 65-year-old retired guys were coming up saying, I love your shit on YouTube, man. Don't stop. Don't take shit from anybody. And it was like, that meant more to me than Sig reposting something or like these guys that have nothing to gain but see the transparency in what I do and liking it is more of a reward to me, and getting a nod of approval from a guy like you is more important to me than Snyder reposting my shit, even though that would result in a bigger,
right,
functional impact on my following for my integrity and those are my North Stars. It's like, I know when guys like you are saying shit like that and old dudes are coming up to me at trade shows, I go to bed sleeping good at night. Because regardless of how much other shit I might take from other people, it's like, I know I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing because that's the type of feedback that lets me know I'm staying on track.
well, dude, that's the way that a lot of these guys have started. It's funny. Like I brought up the Steve Rinella thing. We've been watching that show, and
Yeah.
it's so great when you watch almost all these shows. If you watch them in the early stages, early
Yeah.
years, they're all wearing hodgepodge camouflage.
Yeah.
Like we were just watching one. Steve's got like a freaking First Light beanie. He's got like First Light pants and like a Kuyu coat. I'm like, that is how we all start. And then
Yeah.
we all turn into these fucking cookie cutter. And that's fine. I mean, as you grow, that's how they make their money. I don't care as long as they're not saying, I'm not sponsored. I just use what I want to use.
Yeah.
Oh, really? You're wearing fucking head to toe Sitka. Like, what are you talking about? I wear head to toe Kuyu, but I buy it. And if they gave it to me, that'd be even better because I could use that money to go hunting. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with using one brand. What I am saying is back in the day, everybody kind of starts out, all these influencers start out with some integrity and some like voice, and then it all goes to shit.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, fuck, people ask me all the time, like, oh, fuck, I've bought stuff because of you. Like I know I bought them gators that you talked about. Like
Oh, yeah.
I ordered those a fucking day you were talking. I've gone through every pair of gators I've ever used. I haven't been able to use them because it hasn't snowed here. But all I'm saying is, in a roundabout way, like keep fucking doing what you're doing. Like I don't get asked to do many podcasts anymore because I'm too controversial. And fuck, I've had people tell me like, oh, I'd have you on, but I don't want to piss off fucking Aaron. I'm like, wow. Well, I don't want to be on your podcast anyway. So thanks. Yeah. Thanks for letting me know that shit. Like, I don't really care to do podcasts with people that, like I said, like I'm kind of done chasing the rabbit. I like jumping on with you because it's fun. Like you're very like-minded. I get something out of it. We have a conversation. I'm not looking for followers. Like I don't like I'm trying to weed some of those bastards out. Yeah, at the end of the day, I think everybody should just step back and see what is actually not what they want. See what is actually important.
Yeah.
Like if hunting is very important to you, going in the industry may not be the best way to satisfy that. Like it's definitely not the only way. So I think there's just a lot of misconceptions with the hunting and what you need to do to be able to hunt all the time or hunt a lot.
I think that's the perfect point to kind of like wrap this up on, because I know we went down some rabbit trails here and there, and that's fine. We're just having a bullshit. But like, if my hunting season taught me anything this year, it was exactly that, reaffirming for me like why I actually do this. Like, if you're doing hunting because you want to build a big following, it's like there's better industries to do it in. Like, if the discipline itself is not what you're passionate about, I'm telling you from a guy who has been in this for a while, like, go do something else. Go be a gym influencer or something, because those guys are falling over themselves to like give people money to whore out supplements and all the rest of it. And their brand, my wife owns a women's lifestyle magazine. Dude, we fucking have Vitamixes show up 3 times a week. Like, in other industries with broader audiences, they are giving that shit away. Hunting is not the place you want to do it. But ask yourself, and that's what I got off track when it came to this year. My motivations got skewed. I forgot what my North Star was and why I started doing this stuff in the first place. And like, that's what the rest of this year has all been about, is like recentering and like reprioritizing. And I said something else on a podcast the other day. It's like, every now and then I say something, and even myself, I'm like, oh, that's a fundamental like thought that I need to remember. And it was, prioritizing isn't about deciding what's most important to you. It's deciding about what you're willing to give up in order to go achieve that. And it's like, if prioritization doesn't result in you taking some things off the list, it's just not about taking 10 things and putting them in order. It's about taking 5 of those things and completely removing them off the list. And that's what I didn't do this year. I didn't get rid of anything, which means functionally, I didn't make anything important. I said it was all kind of, sort of okay. And so being honest with myself about what's really important, and having the discipline to sacrifice a couple things in order to put real priority on a few of those hunts or a few of those events, and have those experiences that I need as a man for my own mental health and my own sense of well-being. And that's something else that, I did that little reel about hunting. Like, that's got to be okay too. A lot of why I do what I do is so I can feel like a fucking man. Right. I want to feel like I do hard shit. That makes me feel good about myself. And like, that's got to be okay too. We don't have to hide that. Like you talked about, he wished he could kill without the killing. I've been trying to talk about trophy hunting more. That's okay too. Like, you didn't get a fucking hockey trophy. Like, a trophy is just a symbol of an accomplishment. And if you're telling me that 180-inch mule deer rack on my wall, which I don't have yet, by the way, is somehow not okay because I'm commemorating killing like some 5.5, 6-year-old fucking forest demon who's been able to evade hunters, all of these years, and that's somehow shameful that I'm going to recognize that accomplishment. Like, you can go fuck yourself. Like, I'm not willing to give up that terminology and those words to the antis, but I will try better to explain myself and say, why those elements of hunting are important to me. Anyway, I'm fucking, getting all fired up and
dude,
ranting.
that's 1000%. Like, we need to, we can't just give all this shit away. Like,
yeah,
like grip, like people, when they were talking about getting rid of grip and grins, I about lost my fucking mind.
Dude, when fucking Ben O'Brien was like holding up the meat and it's like a grip and grin 2.0, it's like, I've got pictures of like film pictures of me 12 years old in like fucking sweatpants and the fucking Kimmich fucking snow boots with a moose with my dad. And it's like, that's like a whole fucking segment of my life in this like one fucking picture. And it's like, you're telling me my dad holding up a fucking backstrap is the same as that picture? Like, go fuck yourself. It's not, and I'm not giving that shit up. Like, no.
Never. And we, like you said, we have all the tools now to tell, like, explain ourselves a little more.
Yes.
But let's not try to demonize tradition. Like
Yeah.
that is fucking driving me insane.
Yeah.
Like if I like be respectful. Like
Yeah.
there are some douchebags out there
Like
humping
put the
animals.
tongue back in the mouth, clean up a little. I have no problem with like cleaning up your kill shots. Like, listen, we
Oh,
don't, I
100%.
don't got to be Bomar and like kill a bear with a fucking spear and put it on YouTube.
No.
Like there's a line for everything,
Yeah,
100%.
for sure. For sure. And it's hard sometimes. Everybody's line's a little different, but there is like a pretty set line. Like, would you actually lick a duck or kiss or hump like, if you weren't showing that on social media, would you show that to your wife? Like, would you feel like if you wouldn't be a like proud to show that picture to someone, don't fucking post it. But other than that, like, we can't just dumb down hunting because we're afraid it's going to go away. We just need to explain it a little better, but we got to keep the fucking traditions.
Yeah.
And what you said, and to wrap this up, what you said about like the best way that I've learned to go back in time and see what hunting really means to me and what it's all about, and what this whole fucking thing is to hunt now with my kids. Like hunting with my kids has just 1000% brought me back to what it's all about. Like I said the other day, my son, we shot that rabbit. He's like, Dad, this looks delicious. Like my daughter said that about it. And it's never, ever, not one fucking time. They want to take pictures. Yeah. Don't get me wrong. They want to show mom.
Of course. But
it's never like the ultimate, I can't wait to show my friends that I shot that, like my daughter just shot her first buck. Not one fucking time. Not one time did she say, I'm the first kid in my school to shoot a deer. I can't wait to tell. She didn't care about that part of it. It was like she was drinking in the experience. She was hanging out with my buddy's wife, and she was excited to call mom and tell her. Like, she went and helped butcher it, and she was telling me all about, like, she learned something. I was working for my buddy, so he actually went and butchered it for her. But he taught her something, and she told me about it. I was just like, we've lost such perspective on what hunting is. And I would say, if you are in that space, we've talked a lot about social media, give up social media for a few days, whatever, or limit yourself on it, and take a fucking kid hunting. And it'll fix you. It'll 1000%, you'll be fixed. So,
dude, I love it, man. Let's wrap things up. People are gonna be pissed because we didn't talk about gear at all. And I feel like we got to do some of these more regularly, because I feel like now that we got all the fucking bitching out of the way, we could actually have a nice technical conversation about hunting and gear. So let's we'll get another one of these on the book shortly, because I know there's some things I want to pick your brain about, and I know the same is true inverse. So it's always a riot, man, and I'm glad you're back, dude. I'm glad you kind of got your head squared away and took a break, but like, you're a highlight of my day on there, man. And never stop, never start pulling punches. Like, keep it as real as it's always been.
Well, they can't cancel me. I don't care.
I love it. Man. All right, brother. We'll chat soon. Have a good one.
You too, bud.